how many of you have caught yourself in a situation where you've trusted someone, whether it be personal or business, and you know there's a voice in the back of your head that's just like, something just doesn't feel right, but everything else is perfect. And some time goes on and you finally get blindsided. Whether it takes 6 months, 7 months, a year and a half, something always happens that ends up proving that small voice in the back of your head right, and you go, I knew it. And yeah, that's something that's happened to me right now within business, and I want to share that with you guys. But first, I want to tell you guys a story, and the story has to do with Carnival Cruise Lines and Norwegian. Now, for those of you who don't know, Norwegian was started with two people. It was Ted Arison and Knut Kloster. Knut Kloster was a major shipbuilder. He was a great shipbuilder from Norway, and Ted Arison was Mr. Marketing. Ted saw that cruise liners are going to be a great vacation destination for people in the future, and he invited the best shipbuilder, which was Knut Kloster, to start a business with him. It took some convincing, but he got him there, and they both started a business where they were both co-founders. And business was going very good, and Ted was the one handling money in and money out, and perhaps refunding some people when the weather didn't allow those cruises to set sail. That was Ted's job. So he was holding on to the money. And one bright day, they had a couple arguments, as many relationships do, but Ted decided he didn't want Knut in the business anymore, so he took all of the money that they made with Norwegian Cruise Lines. It was to the tunes of several $1,000,000, and then bounced from the United States to start his own company. He started Carnival Cruise Lines by himself with that money. Now, Ted knew one thing. He knew that Knut was going to sue him and Knut was going to win. But he had a couple of years until the courts did their thing, because courts take a long time with legal situations. And within those few years, he knew that he was going to invest those few $1,000,000 to roll out his own cruise company. And it worked out for him. But Knut Kloster got backstabbed by Ted Arison. Knut trusted Ted Arison, the guy who approached him to start this company in the first place. He trusted him to be a good business partner. And when the temptation was there for Ted to backstab him, that's exactly what he did. And I'm a big believer in fairness and truth. And I think you need to be an honorable man, no matter what. And I don't think that Ted behaved in an honorable way. And the beauty of business relationships is that money is involved. And when money is involved, you can tell how much of it it's going to take for a person to betray their morals, or show their morals, rather. And that then tells a lot more about that person to you than in a personal relationship, where you run the risk of getting your trust betrayed. And almost every single time that you get your trust betrayed in a personal friendship, it is a critical hit. Emotionally, maybe, hopefully not physically. Sometimes someone might backdoor you, right? Your friends might backdoor you. That might be your life on the line. With business, that happens too. But in this case, if someone throws you for some money, money's replaceable. You can make that money back 2, 3 months, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Money could be made again. Everyone knows when times get tough, you want people to depend on when it comes to business. Forgive me, I have the AC on. Let's actually cut that off. I feel like the AC's bad. Could be healthy here. So I want to tell you about this story. And this story is brief, and I'm going to keep it pretty zoomed out, let's just say. It doesn't really matter so much as exactly what happened and how this person betrayed me. And also, I'm not going to put his name and whatever else on the line. Surely not going to do that. I think you got to maintain class, no matter how good or bad the situation is. But in this case, everyone knows that when things get tough, you want to have people on your side that you can depend on. But when things are good, someone might overstep their bounds at your expense. And luckily, my previous business experience and my personal experience has led me to keep him at a distance far enough to understand that it's a mutually beneficial relationship. I haven't given him access to any of the code behind SwiftBurst or anything else, any significant things. It was more of like a mutually beneficial relationship. However, it definitely brought me a lot of money, and I brought him a lot of money too. But at this point, there was a very big opportunity for the both of us to make a lot of money if we both jumped in on it. And there were a couple moments where, you start to like the guy. Things were going good, and it was getting better and better and better in our business. And I figured, you know what? If I have a bone, I'll throw him a bone as well. If I have a couple bones, I'll throw him a bone as well, and he'll throw a bone for me. That was the presumption. But obviously that wasn't a mutually agreed upon thing. It was assumed, in my opinion, and that was my fault. I had assumed, when you're throwing a bone to someone, they're going to throw a bone back to you. In most cases, I think that's the way. And most men who are they have class and they understand the value of your word. A word is bond. People understand, people will share that sentiment. I understand that I'm not wrong in that. I'm just wrong in the way that I perceive that to be the case with this particular individual. And that requires a different type of calibration for me to determine, one, who's worthy of the type of treatment of a proper businessman. Number two, the vetting process. Really, I think that's part of number one. But the vetting process is going to be slightly different for me moving forward to figure out who I'm going to be working with. And perhaps I'm rambling, but I think, in other words, the way that I could just say this is summarized by the actions of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib is an amazing fighter. And there's no amount of money that Dana White could offer him for him to come back to fighting, simply because he gave his mom the word that he's never going to go back to fighting ever again. And that's how I think everyone should be, especially when it comes to business. So don't allow yourself to get taken advantage of. Don't allow people to get a one-up on you. And, there's some sayings for this, like fool me once. It's not so much fool. All right. And you shouldn't allow it to get yourself. You shouldn't allow yourself to get mad at these types of things. I'm actually not mad at all. I'm excited. And I catch myself thinking like this often, especially when there's a challenge or some type of surprise to me that perhaps is going to impair me from progressing. I don't see it as an impairment as much as I see it as a challenge. A challenge with lessons and lessons that then lead to a new version of me, which, like I just said, you do a little bit of self-analysis, you'll figure out, okay, I have lessons here. For my next business partners, the people I'm going to be working with, they have a new vetting process that I need to get through. So all the shit that was going to be coming my way, I'm now armed with the knowledge that I have after a couple days ago. When things are sweet, I could turn my back on this guy and I know he's not going to rob my wallet. Right? And that's something I didn't think about as much, because I feel like, you have to learn your lessons in time and personally. But also you can see these things, I think, a half a mile away if you try to be proactive about learning these lessons from other people's businesses, which is why I love to ask people who have successful businesses questions about their failed businesses on top of their successful businesses too, and the type of lessons they get through. Because if you have the foresight to ask those types of questions, you'll have the foresight to see these things maybe just a little bit ahead of time, and maybe it'll help you get that much ahead when it comes time for your business to go through those issues. So forgive me if I rambled here a little bit, but I want to summarize the big picture, or rather go over the big picture of how important trust is in business. And hopefully you've stuck around to this time. If you have, I really appreciate it. Trust can lead to success, but it needs to be managed carefully. And I think if you have that part down, if you have the proper checks, the proper tests, the proper frame of thinking, I think you'll find that that's very good for you. And you might not have it right the first time. You might not have it right the second time. Lord knows I've bumped my head a couple times too. And I don't want to sound like some old guy with some crazy wisdom, because I'm only in my early 20s. But I find myself incredibly lucky for me being in my early 20s. I was forced with the realities of a very mature life very early on in my life. And I've always said life is not how much you've lived, it's how much experience you've gone through your life. And call it cope. I don't think it's cope, because the life that I've lived over, again, my little 22 years so far on this earth. So forgive me if I come across as preachy, especially towards the end. I appreciate if you've come here. There's a lot more I'd like to share with you, because again, like I've said, there's at least 3 distinct lifetimes that I feel like I've lived in the short 22 years that I've lived. And I thank God every single day for all the gifts that have been given my way. And I'm very happy about sharing those lessons and experiences with you guys as well. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, perhaps a little story time on a little bit of the struggles that I've dealt with a couple days ago, and my lessons from that since. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check the links down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.